Good morning. Welcome to First Church of Religious Science here in New York. This is Palm Sunday for some of you. This is our regular gathering for many. Every Sunday at 10:45 we have a meditation. Some of you have already been here for that, and many of you have just signed in and are signing in right now. So welcome, welcome, welcome. There's a lot of people signing in. And then there's a lot more that sign in and watch the rebroadcast on Facebook and YouTube and X. I think we're on most social media platforms now. I'm going to do a talk today. Part of the words you'll hear will be Raymond Charles Barker's, and part of them will be mine. I'll tell you as best I can who's speaking when. This would be Raymond Charles Barker. He said, the more right-thinking people we get together, the more effective our whole action of consciousness is. So Barker would be pleased to see First Church with all of you today, and I am also. He said, because we know that consciousness is the ultimate thing. It's the ultimate reality. It's what we talk about all the time. We know that the thinking, feeling nature of individuals is the key to everything. It's your thoughts and your feelings and your consciousness, which is playing out in your life 24 hours a day. That's why we talk about it all the time. We're talking about consciousness really in every class. Jimmy does it in our creative living class on Wednesday evenings. I do it every Thursday when I'm presenting Louise Hay's ideas from the book, You Can Heal Your Life. We're all talking about consciousness, raising consciousness, improving consciousness, explaining how consciousness works. So let me try to explain the word in case you're new or maybe you're unfamiliar with it. Your thinking, your feeling nature, the sum total of what you know, is being reflected or mirrored into your life every day. Not only does life love you, not only are you one with this creative process, it responds to you. It's always responding to you. It's your consciousness. So if it's in your life, if you look to your life and all this is going on, in some way, shape, or form, this is in your consciousness and it's being played out in the world. Barker called it your thinking, feeling nature is the key to everything. He said, it isn't about what you have or even what you do. He said, you can't do anything without your thinking, feeling nature. This activity within you, the spirit within you. And the thing is, life responds to you, the totality of you, your conscious thoughts, your unconscious thoughts, and it demonstrates in your life. He made the point that you couldn't even get here this morning in the church, or in this case, into our virtual community, without using your thoughts. You had to figure out how to sign into your Zoom account. You had to go to Meetup, or you had to go someplace, respond to an invitation that we sent you on your device. So you had to figure out how to tune in. So if you're here today, and all of you are, all is well. We believe that there's one spirit, one energy. We can call it living spirit. We can call it creative intelligence. We can call it a lot of different names. The fact is, it's a presence. It's never an absence. So let's think of it. Think of it as a universal presence, something so amazing that it's in everything and everyone and at all the time. In Barker's days, we'd call it mind. We'd call it higher power also, inner power. And we believe it's always is an activity and it's always in action. It's a presence again. And it's a presence that is unfolding. It's intelligence. It's unfolding in you. And it's unfolding in the world. It's expansion everywhere. It's moving towards greater and greater freedom and expansion. We believe in the mind as it is in action. And we believe love as its atmosphere, was a saying of Barker's. So this creative something that's in everything is always an activity, and its atmosphere is love and expansion. We believe that this divine activity, again, is an action that's in every single one of us. It's working through us by means of us. Remember, I say every week, what do you approach the ocean of life with? How big is your consciousness? This activity is working through us by means of us. So how receptive are we to this great good? This activity is the action of our consciousness, right? It's the action of our thinking, feeling nature. So we're always working on changing our thinkings and expanding them, right? And we're working on living the affirmative life. We're learning to see the good in everything and all the time as much as we can. So all of this word again, this consciousness, you say, my consciousness might be greater. In my ministerial classes and practitioner classes throughout the years, people would talk about their consciousness endlessly, and when they were doing so, they'd be talking about their old ideas, their belief systems, the things that would be getting in the way of them demonstrating the kind of life that they would want to. And in every case, in all the classes that I've been involved in, people were working on themselves. They were doing the inner work on themselves so that their outer world could reflect a new realization. Your inner work would be working on ideas like peace, power, love, joy, beauty, wisdom. And you'd want to embody those ideas more and more so that they could be reflected into your life. Our lives, in a very real sense, are a reflection of our understanding. We don't judge anybody for being where they are. Louise really helped me tremendously with that. She said, everyone is doing the best that they can with the information, the understanding, and the awareness that they have. We're not here to judge a soul because we know everybody's evolving as we are. And we're all in the right place, right time, and we're all spiritual beings having a human life, and we're evolving and understanding. So this activity that is within us and in the world is always operating in terms of expansion and our greater good. It brings us a lot of lessons. Life is about lessons. First Church, or this church, and our spiritual gathering today is a divine idea. It's really wonderful. When all of us are getting together in our Zoom calls and our extended family on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, all these different groups of people are becoming improved people. Raymond Charles Barker said, when we get together, all of us together, and we learn these things and we learn about our power and we learn how to let go of old ideas, he says, we are becoming improved people. Raymond Charles Barker was the founder of First Church. There's been 4 of us. He was the first. And he posted an ad in the New York Times years ago. He was also a bit of an entertainer, and he was a very colorful character, being dressed up in red suits and flashy clothes. So his talk title all those years ago for this day of Palm Sundays was "Ride That Donkey," or "Ride the Donkey." And of course, that got a lot of attention, as you can imagine. He was a showman, and he was always doing things that would gather a little attention. I did a presentation on this once before using mostly his words, and I went to listen to it again this week, and I thought, oh yeah, this is pretty good. Let me take it out, dust it off, improve it some more. I'm always working on different talks, different presentations, and I wanted to share it with you. So he said, I have a very strange little title for my talk today, this Palm Sunday, and it's Ride the Donkey, right? And I should say, Raymond Charles Barker was really super passionate about this teaching. I had a minister, Dr. Bill, years ago. He said, well, he's the closest thing we ever had to a pope. And then he laughed. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, he was colorful, he was funny, he was one of the best. And he's written several books. The Power of Decision is the one that most people know him by, but there's several. You can look him up anytime. And he was the pastor to Stuart Grayson, and I believe Louise knew him as well as Stuart Grayson. And the thing about Barker, he knew that once people had an opportunity to experience his teaching and learn about the power that they possessed, he says, and realized they could heal their lives, that this would be a life-changing thing for them. So he was confident if people got involved with this teaching for any length of time, that they would start to demonstrate or see the benefits from a new way of thinking. That morning, to his large gathering, he said, people seem to think, they seem to discipline most everything in their life except their own thinking. And he said to that gathering, he said, now I'm not really talking to about those of you who are gathered here, or I would say on this Zoom call today. I'm not really speaking to most of you because a lot of you have been doing work on yourselves for quite some time. You're involved in our weekly classes, you do your meditations, you do your journal writing. So he said, I'm not really speaking to most of you because you're doing a lot of work on yourselves and you're learning how to use your power. Those of us who study and attend our gatherings and classes, we practice. We release the need to criticize, we practice the presence, we see the good, we're training ourselves to see the good, and we try to work on our consciousness. We attempt to stay awake and alive and plugged in and know that God is all that there is, or Spirit is all that there is, and we attempt as best as we can, as long as we can, to be awake in that knowing. Because we who study, who have come here often, learn that we are caused to our own experience. So if you think about the world at large, maybe some of your friends, your extended family, people you know, they're not learning to live the affirmative life for the most part. You know that. Turn on any of the major news stations any night of the week, and you won't hear a lot of affirmative living. The people that we know for the most part in the world are reading their newspapers, watching their news, and they're talking about what's being presented to them or what they're experiencing in their day-to-day living. There's a lot of negativity that they take in, that they participate in. And Barker maintained all those years ago that they're not disciplining their minds. And he said, that's what we learn to do here. We learn about the power we have and we learn that we can use it. And we have the willingness to trade in old ideas, the lesser for the greater. He says, now people in the world might be disciplining other parts of their lives, like there seems to be a craze during those years. Everybody was going running and jogging and learning about, I think, Pilates and different exercises. And he said they might be learning how to do all these things to exercise, to eat better foods. They might be learning how to get ahead in life. They might be doing a lot of things, but maybe to be healthier. So maybe they're learning to be vegetarians or to change their diets or any of these types of things. So he says they discipline quite often everything except the most important thing, which is their minds and their emotions. And of all the people, who were into sports or sports fanatics and the people doing these different types of routines, whatever the latest thing is to get your body in shape, he laughed because he was kind of rotund. He laughed and he said, well, I avoid exercise. And people laughed with him. And he said, some people love it. He said, and that's good. I'm glad to see people making a positive improvement in any area of their life. And with humor, he said, think of me when you're doing all your workouts. Pray for me. I'm told he was a little bit chubby. In fact, I know he was, and he didn't exercise much apart from walking around the city. Many people could learn how to diet and exercise and good results. So he thought some people were able to use their mind because they were using it in some of these things to make improvements, in their health in different areas. And then he said, what they don't know or what we forget, that the key to everything is mind. The key to everything is consciousness. He says it always has been, it always will be. He says most people just let their minds run wild because their minds are not very well trained. Most people in the world are reacting. They're reacting to the first phone call, the first text message or the email these days that they don't like. They react to what people say, what people do, what happens as they go out the front door. There's just a lot of reacting, and it isn't mindful. It's just automatic reacting. Most people think whatever they want to think, whenever they want to think, and they react to everything, and it's just the way it goes. And he thought that they create a lot of confusion for themselves, not realizing that they could be creating peace instead of the confusion. They haven't learned how to tame their mind. They haven't learned how to center themselves. They don't know much about the power they possess. There's just so much reacting. They're filled with beliefs from the time that they were children, and they simply act and react a lot. Our teaching, of course, our New Thought teaching, we work first by centering ourselves. In the first step of affirmative prayer, we center ourselves in knowing that there is one power, one presence. And then we'll say, and that presence is within us. So our teaching is based upon centering ourselves with great thinkers like Ernest Holmes and Ralph Waldo Emerson. And we teach people how to think, how to develop some self-mastery. We don't teach people what to think at all. But we do let people know that they can heal their lives, that they have the power to transform their lives, that they can develop self-mastery. And we teach people that healing's possible, and every good thing is possible once we begin to understand how it works, and once we begin to practice this teaching. Barker commented, describing what people do, he said they just let the mind go and run away with itself like a bunch of wild stallions just all over the place. And he commented, the human mind needs direction. There's power for good in the universe greater than you, and you can learn to use it. Most people, he claimed, are unaware of the power that they possess. We teach that every single week here. It's like, you have this bank account within you, I was told many years ago, with unlimited ability, unlimited power, money, funds. It's all there for you. And Barker was saying that day with excitement that you're unaware of the power that you have at your disposal, unaware of the awesomeness, unaware that the universe is responding to you 24 hours a day. Now, for close to 200 years, this teaching, this metaphysical approach, this positive approach has involved getting focused and developing a certain discipline. And we learn how to think and how to develop a healthy mentality, an affirmative mentality. So we know that if we desire to grow and expand, we want to grow spiritually and to elevate our consciousness and demonstrate a higher quality of life, it has to involve some discipline. The experienced student, those of you who've been around for a long time, you've been working on yourselves, or the accomplished individual has done some work on themselves. I mean, you can see it very quickly. There's a quickening when you start living the affirmative life. You'll start to see improvements, pretty quickly. That being said, it still does involve getting focused and starting to figure out what you want to create, what you want to co-create. The experienced student, he said, will have developed some self-discipline in their thinking. And I'll say every week, never criticize yourself. Start turning that around. We teach affirmative living. This requires us to be taking the positive approach that Louise spoke of. I know here now in the 2020s, many of you have been doing a lot of inner work. I've known some of you for years, and you're taking the positive approach. I know many of you are very committed to changing your lives. I can hear it during the time of our service where you share your personal stories, what you've been through, what you've grown through, and the self-mastery that's come from the work that you do. So all of us can see and witness how people have expanded and how people are growing spiritually. And many of us know it about ourselves. More and more we've become self-realized, which was always the goal. Many of you have discovered who you've come here to be. You might have been playing small for a very long time, and now you're realizing, look, I'm here to do this, or I'm here to experience that. And you're doing it, and this is wonderful. And as a result, you have more of the things that you want from life, and you're doing the things that you were meant to do. We've all witnessed the growth that we see here week by week. It's undeniable. That's what we're talking about here. Barker was saying you can think of the old religious orders where they'd have monks and nuns and they'd be in monasteries for years. And he said they had such tremendous dedication to their prayer work. And then he asked, how would you like it if I said that you have to pray unceasingly all day long? And he was thinking about the monks. And he said, you wouldn't do it. He said, I wouldn't do it either. He said, but they did it because they were passionate about it. Cultivating this connection with God within Source and the awareness that they had as a result of it. the awareness that was brought forward into their experience and in their lives. He said they were disciplining their mind. They were opening up their consciousness to source, morning, noon, and night. Now we find ourselves in the 2020s. We don't discipline ourselves in that way anymore, but we certainly could benefit from some centering activity. We could benefit from taking a pause here and there throughout most every day. There would be benefits to us, come to us by, changing our thinking. We would see improvements, incorporating just a little bit of discipline, release the need to be critical, release the need to be in the problem, knowing that the peace of God is your one goal. As you center yourself in these ideas, you'll see a change. Barker said, I have a corny expression I want to share. Think what you want and want what you think. He said it's corny, but it's important. Think what you want and want what you think. He said, want what you think is really the most important part. Put your thoughts, put your focus on what you want. Like create a big vision board. He was saying that in so many words. Put your thoughts and focus on what you want. This is far more powerful than focusing on fearful thoughts, the things you don't want. Because when your mind goes off on a negative thought, or it starts doing a version of ain't it awful and what's not fair and what's wrong and all of that, you won't want to have the results of that type of thinking. He said, I promise you. Everybody has days like this where we're in reaction. We're human beings. Some might go off on a tangent, get resentful, angry, or whatever it is, fearful. He said, but you don't want the result of that, right? So now remember, where the mind goes, you go. So he's again arguing for it that we have power, as Ernest Holmes said, to use greater than us, and we can use it. So his argument is for us to have a little bit more of a disciplined mind. You go where your mind takes you, and you are the only thinker in your mind. So it's up to us. It's always up to us. You can decide what goes on in your consciousness. You have the power to do that. This whole thing, he said, you can decide. Now, about this donkey that we're talking about today. It says in the gospel that when Jesus was heading into Jerusalem, he asked two of his disciples to go over and find a donkey on which no person has ever sat or ridden. And they went and they found one, and they brought it to him, and he rode down the hill into Jerusalem, where he received a very big welcome, Hosanna, and the palm fronds and all of that. Rode down into a very big welcome. Now, if you ever remember seeing a rodeo on TV or ever being at a rodeo, you see someone tries to ride an untamed animal. It's wild. You see them coming out of the gate, right? So that donkey should have shaken Jesus off, kicked him off, thrown him off in less than 15 or 20 seconds. But you have seen what they do. You've seen in the rodeos, they come out and whoever it is on the back of that animal struggles and it eventually throws the person, usually in just a few seconds. Because the animal is unruly and knows what it wants, and it doesn't want somebody riding on its back. Now, it's interesting that Jesus rode into Jerusalem calmly. The animal was behaving perfectly. Furthermore, he rode through all the crowds where all the noise was and spectators, and they had their palms and branches, and they're shouting with their cups, Hosanna to him who comes in the name of the law or the Lord. Reverend Barker that day digressed, and he was talking then about how animals don't really act that way. He was thinking about in England, the Queen, or now the King of England, uses these horses, these beautiful horses. And those horses go out for many rehearsals, and they're deliberately exposed to people and a lot of noise, and they remain steadfast all the way. He said it takes years of training for those horses to be steadfast. So when the time comes for the king to come out of Buckingham Palace and get into the coach, those horses are right there in the crowds. And it doesn't matter what kind of noise, doesn't matter what kind of music, they go right by it all. Now, what about the donkey Barker was talking about in Palm Sunday? He said, the thing about it is the donkey wasn't broken in. This donkey represents your consciousness. And he said, you better sit on it, you better calm it down so you can direct it to go where you want to go, not where your emotions take you. Now, he said, Jesus knew exactly where he was going. He had gone over this path many, many times in his life. And so he got on that donkey and it went down through the crowd and all the shouting and yelling of the people, Hosanna, praise for him who comes in the name of the Lord, all that. And he said he rode his donkey. He said, Barker next asked the audience, now, what do you do when you get all upset? That's why I call the talk today, you better ride your donkey. Your donkey is you when you're upset, disturbed, you when you're confused, you're out of sorts, when you're unhappy, you're miserable. Barker said, then you better get on the back of your own donkey and put it in order to get your consciousness in order. He said, order is heaven's first law, and we are here to have dominion. We're here to have a peaceful life, and we can create a peaceful life. Now, that's the whole purpose of this teaching. Using affirmative prayer is nothing more than that. It's pausing and taking control of your consciousness. And then it's determining and learning what it is that we want. And then thinking about what we want, feeling it, knowing it. And then we're directing ideas that are valuable. Then we're directing ideas that are being acted upon. He said, when I sit down and I write a sermon or I write for one of my books, and I write, he says, I'll do a lot of spiritual thinking, and I'll do it with ease because I'm in the groove. I'll do it in order. He says, I have to be alone. There has to be quiet. I cannot have confusion around me and do my best work. To be at my best. I do most of my work at home, or I find some quiet place away from the office, like most ministers. And when I'm in the office, there's always going to be someone coming in the door. The phones are going to be ringing, and it's just, I'll be taken away from what I'm here to do. So wherever I go, I sit in quiet at home or someplace, and I know that there's going to be no noise or interruptions. I have a lot of friends who are ministers, and most of us all do the same thing. We get away from anything that's going to be a distraction, where we can be at peace. He next said, creative ideas do not come into confused minds. Again, this is for all of us. Creative ideas do not come into confused minds. So we want to take a pause. Creative ideas don't come in when there's a lot of commotion and upset. We have to find a way to create that time in our world to have it. Whatever you have to do in your own life to create it, it's important. I have to find a way to take a time out from all of that. Now, here's the thing to understand. Many ideas come at you from all directions. We're living in a busy time, and it can be disastrous because you have to find a way to filter it and stop it. And what I'm suggesting here is that we need to find a place and time for clear thinking. You've heard it before, to be still and know that you are God or you are spirit, to know that there is spirit within you, that you live in it, you move in it, you have your being in this substance. I remember my father years ago when I was a kid saying, order is heaven's first law. To this day, when things get too messy, I look around here, I don't like it at all. Or there's too much confusion. I have a need to straighten things down and calm down, and that way I'll be working at my best. It's that way with all of our thinking too. The first step of affirmative prayer, by the way, is to calm yourself, and the word is recognition. And you center yourself in knowing that you are one with the one, and recognize that there's one power, one presence, and that presence is in you right now. And that's what we want to do always. We want to get to that place in consciousness where we're centered in that knowing. That's what the monks of old would do. They would be praying all day to get to that place in consciousness where they know that they're one with the one. However you do it, it's necessary to slow down and allow the awareness to come into your consciousness. So no matter if you're a minister with your lesson, or you're a business person, or a grandfather or grandmother, or someone trying to figure out a new way forward, remember, Creative ideas do not come into a confused mind. If you want clear, correct knowing, you will learn to approach life with simple trust and faith. There's a lot of interest in the United States in meditation. People have been trying to slow down this world and trying to simplify themselves and direct their consciousness. This is what we do in affirmative prayer. There is so much power available to you in affirmative prayer once you learn how to do it effectively. So let's learn how to do it effectively. We center ourselves, we contemplate this one life, and we realize we're a part of it, and we realize that it responds to us. We've been doing this in New Thought for over 150 years or so. At the center, at First Church, we teach you how to use the power you possess, how to approach life, and how to use and develop your power. Whenever I read any one of the great prophets, most any religion really, I notice the profound simplicity of their message. Their message is clear. You know they have faith by their clarity. You can tell it. For thousands of years, in the simplest teachings, it's the simplest of teachings that have survived. We are made in the image and likeness of God, right? That's one of the ones that survived. It's as simple as can be. It's a profound statement. It's as profound a statement as you can find anywhere because it speaks of the gifts that each and every one of us have. You and I have the ability to create worlds and experience unique in the world. Spirit has given us great gifts that we alone as human beings possess. Again, simplicity. You are an individualization of spirit. The great appeal of Louise Hay was that she made such universal ideas accessible and available to everyone. Emerson also had many simple quotations, if you take into consciousness, could change your world. Awesome, great, simple ideas. There's a lot there. Read Emerson, read Self-Reliance and some of his other works. His message was direct, it was clear, it was to the point, no nonsense. We like observing people. Sometimes it's fun. I sometimes take a subway ride and I look out at people, take a walk through the city. There's always a lot to observe and I'm interested in people. I don't read minds, but I can almost tell you when I'm taking the train, who's happy and who's in a good place and who's miserable. It's pretty obvious. Whenever I get on a train or bus, I notice the happy ones, the people who are engaged with life and who seem to be connected. They're easy to pick out from the miserable ones. For one thing, there's far fewer of them. Not long ago, I was looking towards the front of the train, and a couple of people who looked happy. Then I chuckled, and as I was observing them, I thought, I wonder if I look happy. So the question I ask you today, this was Dr. Barker, are you happy? He was wondering what they would be, how they would be assessing him. He says, I quite often have a lot of people hanging around the lobby after our gatherings. And they give me lots of compliments. And he said, I'm always flattered. And then he said, I want you to ask yourself, what do you see when people look at you? What is the thing that you present? And you might ask yourself, am I becoming what I came to become in this world? He said, it's a good question to ask yourself. Because in this teaching, we're always doing our inner work. And increasingly, as we do our inner work, you're going to notice you're having more harmony with other people. We know what people do or not do. We know that whatever people do or they don't do doesn't really have anything to do with us. We have consciousness. We have the consciousness of self-acceptance and self-approval, which of course brings us peace. And what we have is very attractive. If people were to observe you, most likely they would find you to be one of the happy people on the train or the bus, one of the ones who are vital and interested in life itself. As we remember, as we love ourselves, as we work on ourselves, as we begin to, again, love ourselves more and extend this out into the world, we have a sense that things are wonderful, that we are valuable, and that life is wonderful. It's beautiful, and it has unlimited possibilities. The people who are on this call today, the people who are involved in this teaching are very fortunate. The whole world will probably tell you the opposite of what we tell you here every week. But you and I know what we are teaching is so. We know that we're one with the one. We know we're individualizations of this great energy, this great source. So the whole world shouts at us and wants us to believe in everything else, and the sky is falling and all of that, but they want us to believe whatever they have woke to. They want you to believe it also. Much of it's negative and based upon fear. Remember always, you are the only thinker in your mind, and you are here to develop your consciousness. You're here to express life and to do so in whatever way you can, because it's going to be uniquely you. You can always trust this inner source to provide you with the correct answers. We know in this teaching, people are far from ignorant. We know facts, we're not ignorant of them. We also know a greater truth than the facts usually. Barker said we're trying to hold the line. We know that in the face of anything and everything that we are supplied and supported, that the universe has our back. We know that infinite intelligence resides within each and every one of us. We absolutely know that everybody, every last one of us is evolving, and everyone is in the right place at the right time. We release the need to get drawn into other people's drama. I know it's tough, but we release the need for it. Dr. Barker famously said, "I'm running only one world." And he pointed to himself. He said, "That's me." "I'm only running one world." And he pointed to himself. He said, "That's myself. And the only world you can run is yourself." And he said, it's a full-time job. People say quite often that they're a mess or their life is just, you hear people talk, right? And they'll go into like, I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, or this is wrong and that's wrong. And they have this negative narrative. And that's one of the things that Louise addressed in her book, that we are good enough. We're more than good enough. We're whole and complete. And Barker said, when they say that to me, he said, well, let's get a few things straight. I know you are more than what you think of yourself. I don't want you to be a mess. I want you to be whole and good. But if you're going to be a mess and he said, you don't need to be around me. He says, because I'm here taking care of myself. And he said, they'll go on and talking about what's wrong and what they're afraid of, on. And he says, then I'll go in and I'll suggest, shift your attention over to the other side, away from what's wrong and what's missing. Shift your attention towards what's possible, what's good, and what's true, wholeness and wellness. And he said, I'll say to myself, there is one life, one mind, one spirit, and it's in action right now, as it always has been and as it always will be. And the people that know it right now will straighten out the confusion in their lives. And he said, and the people who don't know that there's one power go merrily on their way, he says, with their troubles. He said, you see, most people out there do not realize that they can solve their problems by means of their consciousness. Sadly, many are very invested in keeping their problems, in keeping their stories. He says they are problem-ridden. And he said they don't pause long enough. They don't take those pauses long enough, but they go round and round with their troubles, not allowing a positive idea to take form. He was a counselor. He said, I have people in my office and I listen to them and they talk and talk and talk and talk. And he said, finally, he says, well, I've listened for 25 minutes to your troubles. Let's take 5 minutes to talk about solutions. And he says, I'll give them a powerful affirmation, affirmative prayer, and we'll clear it up. He says, sometimes I might add, and everything you've been concerned about or worried about, I have released into the wastebasket. You're free. And he said, usually people respond positively. Other times they walk away, they go out the door and they're still on the merry-go-round. Around and around they go. And if you were in an amusement park, the merry-go-round would stop every so often so you could get off. He said, our mind is so creative, so amazingly creative. Once you start winning and reaping the benefits of this teaching, once you really dig in, he says, you won't want to stop because you'll want more of every good thing. You'll want to keep on affirming more and more good. But if you're using your power destructively, where you're worrying and worrying, then you're getting so disturbed, People who do that habitually have a very difficult time stopping. And they create dis-ease in their bodies. And he says, we all get on the merry-go-round of worry to degrees. He says, but as soon as you find yourself there, get off of it. He says, I check in periodically. And if I notice I'm disgruntled or unhappy, he says, I shift it immediately. I release it. I won't even start. I stop it because I know that merry-go-round is going to control me until I stop it and get off. And he said, you can do this anytime. There's power for good in the universe. You can use it. You can discipline yourself. He said, ride the donkey. Get on it. Take control of your life. Say, I don't want this. I want good things, better things, the best things. There is power for good. We will teach you how to use it here every week. So what's stopping me? What's stopping me? Why am I continually going on this merry-go-round? He said, you can do this. He says, I promise you can elevate your consciousness. That's what we're talking about. You can level up. I know you might say you have a family members and other people and they talk all this stuff all the time. He says, friends perpetually are talking about the negatives and the politics and everything that's awful. And Barker says, I don't do too much entertaining. I do some, but I don't do much. And I try my best to spend time with people who will not just be on that merry-go-round of everything is wrong and ain't it awful. He says, watch when you invite people, into your home because they bring their minds with you. He says, if you're on the phone, he's on the phone too. He says, you know who they are. He says, I just say yes, yes, yes. And he said, the person on the other end is sure to, they're listening to me. And he says, yes, yes, I know. And he says, then they're perfectly happy on the other end. And he said, the thing to remember is to ride your own donkey. Get that mind of yours under control. And now let the CEO of you run it. You are the CEO, the chief executive producer. Ride the donkey. Begin to make your own decisions. Don't let the family run it. Don't let somebody else run it. You run it. You're still going to be in the family and you're still going to be in the world. No sense withdrawing from it. But now you're going to run you. You're going to run you. You can, I know this is uncharted territory for a lot of you. There is a lot of codependent people out there with a lot of people pleasers. The question he asked, are you willing to take up the reins and ride the donkey? He said, you're a Buddha, you're a Jesus, you're Isaiah. You are one with creative intelligence, and you've got this activity within you. Please know this. Now, as you probably know, there's all kinds of people who want to give you advice, well-intentioned for the most part. I know there's folks who are constantly trying to tell you what to do because they're forever trying to tell me what to do. Everybody knows what I ought to do or what I ought not to do. Everyone knows what I ought to eat or not eat. And he said, I don't pay any attention. You'll hear people all the time what you should or should not do. He says, you have everything within you that you could ever possibly need. God is found within you, in your mind and your emotions. That's where spirit is. That's where life is. That's where causation is. That's where all good is. Right there in you, operating through you, as near as your next breath. And that you can handle it and it can be directed, but it has to be done by the individual. That's why there's no therapist that will ever tell you what to do, at least no good one. That's why I do my best not to tell people what to do, even when it seems obvious. I'm more inclined to ask questions that might lead to some people to discover certain truths. I try to help people to see themselves and appreciate themselves. So I got up and to say to them, when's the last time you read one of our books or engaged in one of our gatherings? Most people read some of our material. This material is to be read and contemplated. Our lessons are to be listened to again and again. Any scholar will tell you you can only get a skimming on the first reading or the first listening. So reread the literature, listen to our media, get involved in what we do. It'll help you gain some self-mastery or get some control of that donkey of yours. Remember, reminding yourself, this is what I'm suggesting today. Get out your materials, discipline yourself, tune in more often. But I'm saying read and reread, listen and re-listen, think and rethink. Get control of you. No one else needs to be controlled but you. Now remember, I'm talking to myself just as much as I'm talking to you. I've got to think I've got to think this through also. I have to run my life. I have to control my work. I have to decide just as much as you do. This is a shoe that fits all of us. And when I do, I'm all right. Now, do I occasionally get confused? Of course, but not for long. Not for long. We have an internal guidance system here. We live, move, we have our being in it. Does this mean I don't listen to any news or get caught up in all this stuff? I do. Of course I do. I can't live every day without some of it. But when I'm reading the papers and I'm doing all this, he says, it tends to take me off track. He said, but how can you ride your donkey? He says, well, I say, all right, that stuff, when I shut it all down and I put it all away and I direct my mind on something creative. And it only takes a few seconds. So let's get back to that opening phrase that I use. Think about what you want. Focus on what you want and want what you think about. The last half, again, is the most important part because for 1 minute you can think about what you want. A scripture says, pray without ceasing, which is the monastic orders for constant prayer. Now, I don't relate to it in that way. I think the overtone of your mind is what does it. It's the tendency of your thoughts. If you're generally right and thinking happy, I think you're all right. I don't think you need to get on your knees and pray and all of that. Nothing wrong with it as a method. It's the tendency of your thoughts that's important. That's where we can determine whether your mind is healthy or not so healthy. Let's imagine life as a joyful journey where even our minds, like steadfast donkeys, trained donkeys, learn to navigate the path of happiness. Sometimes it is as if our thoughts, our inner donkeys, turn back on us with a knowing smile saying, you've got this. This transformation from untamed thoughts to harmonious mindsets signify that we're now leading our lives with intention and joy. It's a reminder that when we steer our course with a little bit of encouragement, like a carrot for a donkey, it goes a long way. Let's embrace the wisdom that's within us, laugh along the way, and sprinkle our journey with some grace. So let's dive into an uplifting conversation with the universe, a heartfelt, affirmative prayer that connects us deeply to the source of all. So in this beautiful moment, I embrace this vibrant presence of creative intelligence, the very heartbeat of the existence that's in us all, flowing in me and around me. I'm intertwined with this infinite source of wisdom, love, creativity, and its unstoppable goodness. I see this universal spirit everywhere, a divine energy intertwining with my essence, crafting the stars and whispering into life itself. This creative intelligence is everywhere. It's in every moment, every molecule. I am one with this essence, reflecting its boundless creativity, intelligence, and love. I am a unique spark of this universal fire, living out its virtues and visions in my every action and thought. I declare my mastery over my thoughts and direction in life as the architect of my journey. I choose paths lived with clarity, wisdom, and love. Empowered and intentional, I create moments of joy, peace, and prosperity, guided by my own inner light. With gratitude and a heart overflowing with gratitude for this profound connection, for this realization of my inner strength, and for the constant support of the cosmos. I'm grateful for every step, every lesson, every leap forward. I'm grateful for everything and all of you, and my being is inspired with every breath and every decision. I send my intentions into the universe, trusting in the perfect unfolding of my desires. Letting go, I have faith within, faith in the divine process, the orchestration of my affirmations, manifesting in harmony, and so it is. And now I would like to have the microphones turn over to each of you, and you can talk about Ride Your Donkey or Palm Sunday or whatever it is that you would like to talk about. Share your demonstrations, how life is working for you, and we'll see you on the other side of the break. Thank you.